I love the YouTube channel Simple on Purpose, and she started a no yell challenge. So today I want to talk to you about the no yell challenge with a little sprinkle of childhood trauma added in. Stay tuned.
Hi, I'm Caroline. I'm the trauma mama, and if you don't know me, I'm married to Josh, and we have 3 kids who were adopted through foster care. This channel is all about raising kids who have experienced trauma, raising kids with special needs, and some basic simplicity parenting hacks.
So if you have decided to take the no yell challenge, congratulations. I think it's a great goal. Whether your goal is to not yell for a week or a month or a year, congratulations. It's awesome. I want to talk to you and encourage you to look at your goal and to back it up a little bit. So a few years ago, I started writing down 10 goals every day, 10 goals for myself. And I phrased them as though they had already happened, but they were all things I was striving to achieve. So, like earning $1 million. I was not earning $1 million, but I would write down, I earn $1 million a year. Okay. That actually wasn't one of my goals, but that's how it works. And one of my goals, I had a goal to be kind to my husband. And even when I was mad, that was my goal, and to be patient with my kids. And about 6 months ago, I realized I needed to back up my goal, because before I could be kind to my husband or patient with my kids, I had to be kind to myself and patient with myself. So if you are doing the no yell challenge, I encourage you to first think about, how are you going to be patient with yourself? What's your boundary with your kids' behavior? So I would say, decide what are the behaviors that your kids exhibit that usually get you to yell? And what are you saying negatively about yourself in those moments? Are you saying, I failed as a parent, my kids are out of control, they're never going to behave? If you want to be more patient with your kids and you want to respond to them in a way that better matches your best version of yourself, then I would encourage you to be patient with yourself in that moment. And so for me, it might be when my kids refuse to eat food, and especially if I've worked on dinner, and if they refuse to eat it, that might be something that gets me irritated. And so what I would do before starting the no yell challenge is I would make a list of all the things that I had done in the past week that had me yell. And I would think about, what do I want to be? How do I want to respond in that moment? And I would get a very clear picture in my head. And then I would decide, what support do I need from myself or from my spouse, so that in that moment I can be patient with myself and then respond appropriately to my child. So often what I need when I picture having dinner with my kids when their high preference foods aren't on the table. Well, what I know is I need to make sure that I don't have a dinner like that in the middle of a really stressful week when I have, a board meeting and Zoom calls all day. That would be more like a pizza night. So I arrange my schedule in a way that the dinner that I want to sit at the table and have them try new foods, that falls on a day that I can maybe take a nap or do meditation or do a yoga with Adrian, because that's me being gentle with myself and getting myself prepared for, now all my energy is going into this dinner time, so that I can say, you know what? I would love for you to take a no thank you bite. Or I even learned this new one, which is just have the kids smell it. So if I have done yoga or taken a nap, I am less likely to have the negative self-talk, because my negative self-talk comes in. It's a combination of lack of sleep or being exhausted and then a trigger. So if my kid's behavior is the trigger, I can't control my kids' behavior, but I can make sure that I'm well rested. If I didn't get a good night's sleep, because my nighttime sleep is often out of my control, but I can make sure that I've had a nap or I've had downtime so that then when we're sitting at the dinner table, I can say, could you take a no thank you bite? Or could you just smell the chicken? And then that will be good enough for me. And as long as you have some of the other foods, that's fine. And I respond being more of the person that I want to be. When we take care of ourselves, we are much more able to show up for our kids. So again, Simple on Purpose. If you haven't watched any of her videos, I will link below. She really talks about how you get to define the challenge for yourself. So I am in no way saying that, that her challenge is not already set up for success, but I'm saying that some of us whose kids have trauma, we need to work a little bit harder because we are a little more drained sometimes. We got some really disappointing news from a doctor's appointment, and I really felt it. And if I had not done as much research and therapy on self-care, I would have jumped right to let's make a plan. That used to be my go-to. We'd get bad news, we'd make a plan. And instead, I knew I needed to feel my feelings first. I needed to kind of grieve the loss of how I thought things would go. And I yesterday did very little because I let myself have some downtime. Watched a little bit of a show. I didn't binge watch to the point that it made me feel worse, but I just did my daily habits and didn't add anything else to my list. And what I found was this morning when I woke up, I was energized. I was ready to get right out of bed when my alarm went off, and I was ready to be there for my kids in the morning. And then I had an early morning Zoom call, and I was able to do that and be who I wanted to be in that meeting because I took this time to do self-care after getting the disappointing news. Whereas if I had just jumped into a plan and had a day where it was like, go, 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 declutter the house, get the toys all organized, then when my kids came home, I probably would have felt really frustrated because that's where that pain and grief would have come out. It would have come out for me in those moments when my kids pushed back, or they didn't want to take a no thank you bite, or they said, nope, the snack you made for us isn't good enough, and I want to go grab a packaged food, something like that. So really, I think when you are working with kids with trauma, it is important to know how you're going to take care of yourself before you get to a goal of I'm not going to yell. The other thing is, I think a lot of people who choose to be foster parents or foster adoptive parents, we do not believe in good enough parenting. And in Vermont, where I live, the status of if a biological parent can raise their kid anytime it is possible, that is the best scenario for the kid and for the family. And the Vermont bar is good enough. So a lot of foster parents believe we have to be better, like good enough is not good enough. And I agree to that to a point because I do think that we need to help our kids heal from their trauma. And if we just keep at the threshold good enough, we're not doing that. But I also think you don't have to be the perfect parent and you don't have to perfectly respond in every situation. You being there for that child, that really is good enough. You are enough. And I think the more we can say that to ourselves and take some of the pressure away, the more we can actually be a better parent for our kids. So I do encourage you to do the no yell challenge. As a foster parent, I will be honest, as a foster parent, I never yelled at my foster children. But once my kids were adopted and like all the responsibility is really on me, yelling is not really one of my struggles because I don't really do it often, but there are definitely times that I yell. And I just know that in order to not yell, if I just set that as a goal, then when a situation comes up and I'm unprepared and my go-to is yell and I'm trying not to yell, I'm only going to beat myself up more. And then I'll end up yelling even more than I would have. So I think you really need to know what the situations are. What are you going to do instead? I mentioned boundaries, and boundaries is It's really important. So your boundary might be, my boundary is my kids are going to sit at the table with us. Okay, so that's your boundary. Just because your boundary is that kids sit at the table doesn't mean your kids are actually going to sit there. So what you need to know is if they try to leave the table or hide under the table, what am I going to do? How am I going to respond? Now, my challenge is to not yell, so I won't raise my voice. So what will I be able to do instead? And that is the great thing about boundaries is it really doesn't matter if somebody crosses it because you are already prepared for what you will do when that happens. I have another episode on boundaries coming up because I think to be a foster parent, you need to be really clear on what your boundaries are. Your boundaries around what type of situation you would be willing to say yes to. And once you are a foster parent, you need to have really clear boundaries around what you will accept from the process. And again, it doesn't mean that nobody ever crosses your boundary, but it means that you are prepared to know how you will respond when they do. So I do have that episode coming up, but I think it also relates to this no yell challenge because once your kids cross that line and they cross your boundary, you need to know how you'll respond because you've just said that you're not going to yell. And you get to define yelling. You get to define what it is for you because sometimes we do have to raise our voice in order for kids to hear us over their own volume. And sometimes I have one of my kids, he needs me to be very stern and serious or he will not understand that it's a direction. So I had to really clarify for myself that speaking directly and sternly, that is not yelling. Yelling is when my voice is louder than it needs to be and when really I am out of control and my anger is showing. So that's how I defined it for myself. You get to define it for you. So I hope this was helpful. And comment below if you are taking on the no yell challenge or if you have in the past and let us know how it went and any tips that you have. Thank you so much for watching and I'll see you next week. Oh, be sure to like and subscribe.